All right.
All right, so let's officially get started with our half an hour pre-meeting. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Mariah. Within about 2 or 3 minutes before 7 o'clock, I will do a formal introduction of Patrick, and then we will be off to the races.
All right, so some of this will be you all putting up with me having to have a billion tabs open and finding what I am talking about. But the first thing is just to orient anyone who is wondering, this is our main WMS iNaturalist project. This, if you observe anything this year and you are joined in our project, this is where it will go. And you can go down and see our observations, and right off the bat, we see our chanterelle, our mystery chanterelle, which correctly identified to the genus in my opinion, but it was seen under oak, and it looks like, so I'll start out with looking at that, and we can get back to the rest of the projects later. And this is something where Patrick did work with the chanterelle, specifically the newly described chanterelle in Chicago area. So one of the first things you can do when you are looking to help someone else in the project identify what they've found, and this is a great thing to use the project for, is the collaborative learning. Even if you don't know where to start, like I'll show you a comment I left on this one, and you can tell that I'm mostly just kind of pointing him in a direction, not saying I know. So the first thing you can do is look at the region where it was found, and there's privacy settings on here where you don't have to pinpoint it. Peter has here, but you can make it a general area. And so this was in the Oshkosh, Appleton area along this lake here, Calumet County. And he's uploaded at least 3 photographs, and that's good to get multiple views, because you could see if you only saw this, how much could you really tell? And you get to see the gills, or rather the false gills of the chanterelle. And he's also noted that it was under an oak in the forest, and there were several doubles. And I'm understanding that by doubles, he means this growth pattern, this growth habit, that 2 popped up together. And perhaps that's diagnostic, though I haven't read anything about that yet. And if anyone wants to pop in, unmute yourself and interrupt me with anything you want to say about this observation. Here so far is my comment that we could look at Chanterellus deceptivus or Chanterellus, and then I was trying to figure out which one of these names was current, but I think it's this one, Persicanus, because I read in a couple of different places, including on Mycoguide, that they were oak associating species in Wisconsin. And not that long ago, you would have seen the European species being described for all of chanterelles, all the golden ones. But they're doing a lot of great research with that. So if you were trying, I'll just ask you this, Patrick, because I've been thinking that by just plain look of this one, you might want to favor deceptivans. But then I was reading that though they're looking for morphological patterns, that wasn't necessarily coming up. This was, for reference, your observation. I think it's the only observation for this species on iNaturalist.
Well, yeah, that's deceptivus, and that is from that's near the Hiles Quarry location. That's and that's the location where it is actually described from. So you guys, or Britt's going up to the Hiles area for a number of years. In one of the earlier years, he brought up Jay Justice, and Jay collected this chanterelle, and he sent specimens to Bart Pike, who has been working on chanterelles a lot in Europe and North America. And he described this as Chanterellus deceptivus from that location. So my photo is from the type location of the same, area of the chanterelles that Jay collected in. So that's
right.
About as good as you could get for a representative picture.
Because it's the only one.
It's the same area. The thing that is a little bit strange is that Jay didn't write down that there were oaks there. And that patch of, that area where these chanterelles are has lots of the red oaks, which is going to be what it's mycorrhizal with.
And you can see the leaves in the picture too.
Yeah, so I'm a little disappointed that was left out of the description for the chanterelle.
Right.
But yeah, this is Chanterelle activus, and it looks pretty much the same as Phasmatus, which is described from Western Wisconsin.
Tess, if you could mute whoever that is, or Rose. Okay, yeah. So it is. I was looking at the other species that was described as being associated with oak on your website, and it seemed like those ones were more gold along. I mean, I'm comparing it to just one image, but they were more narrow and gold.
Yeah, well, basically, as far as I know, in Wisconsin, all the chanterelles are with oak except the one that's up north with conifers, or wherever that, not necessarily up north, but wherever you have coniferous trees.
Yeah, like
and that is Analensis, which described more recently.
Yeah,
so that's
so going
the
back,
chanterelle that's with conifers in the northern part of the North America.
Excuse me.
But what is weird here, do these pictures enlarge?
Yes, they do, and I can bring that up.
So that first one, that looks pinkish underneath and very golden on top.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think that is spectaculous.
Interesting.
His third picture has different coloring. So I'm wondering if he took pictures of two different chanterelles from two different places. So he's got mixed.
I could ask. Yeah, it's quite pale. And these
that's completely different color there.
Yeah, and I can definitely see that one looks younger too, but and maybe there was more than one species in the same area, and I could definitely see a mixed deciduous and conifer.
Matt Foltz did the work with Tom Volk over in Western Wisconsin, where he described 3 species, and he found all 3 in the same forest, fairly near each other. So you can get, several species. So you have to look at each one carefully with the color. So I'm guessing, based on the color in those photos, which we assume is natural, we don't know, that first one is, I would say the first one was spectaculous, and the third picture could be, if we think that's pale enough, could be either Phasmatus or Deceptivus. We don't really know the range of both of those, so we can't tell them apart. I don't know how to tell them apart without microscope work or something else.
Would you say, because I was directing Peter here to resources, would you say that you would appreciate people in Wisconsin sending you a message on iNaturalist about chanterelles they see, or is that useful?
Well, what people can post their pictures, and at some point I can look at them. I don't know if I want to get all these emails.
Get emails, yeah. No, I was like, I wanted to alert him that there was interesting research about this and that this could be part of it. But it can be found at any point. That's the fun thing about the data on iNaturalist is once it's up here, it's got its associated.
And then if you have people in your club finding chanterelles, if they can save a specimen like this of this type, then if you guys figure out how you want to get DNA sequencing from a specimen, you can figure out which chanterelle this is.
Right, and then we can start to build more of a morphological picture.
Distribution. I mean, it's possible that both species are across the whole state, but we don't know that yet.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if Deceptivus is known beyond Northeast Wisconsin, actually.
Nothing I saw showed it like that.
You basically have to sequence everyone.
Yeah. On Patrick's website, on Mycoguide. And if you check the chat, you'll see links to everything you might want, but you can get to research on chanterelles like this pretty quickly if you, as he said, not everything is accessible from the front page, but I'll just
but there is a search box, or I mean, you can search Mycoguide Cantharellus in Google or whatever, or put it up there, and then I only have a page on the Chicago chanterelle, and that has a link to our paper on that's publishing the Chicago chanterelle.
Yes, on the specific species. But this is really interesting, and it can give you a sense of what
you see how variable the color can be in that.
Yeah. That you can't just say, oh, it's this, so it's definitely. I mean, like there are some, you note some like characteristics, like the greenish yellow one young at the margin. So that would be along the edge of the cap here, I think. It's
really subtle.
Right, you would really, and that is where looking at a bunch and taking the careful photography, honestly, really helps you notice those.
In good lighting, yeah.
In good lighting, yeah, you notice the kinds of.
So the center picture is one of the best pictures of our Chicago chanterelle. The picture on the left is a picture we took a long time ago of large fruit bodies, and they faded out. And then the one on the right shows one of the several variations in paler coloration where they're missing the orange or yellow.
Right, and that's how they were in the field that's not drying.
Yeah, and the center picture shows the subtle color differences where the cap and the stem are yellow, basically. The ridges underneath the cap are slightly more, they look a little bit pink, but they're actually a little bit more orange than the yellow cap. So you can see there's a color difference between the cap and the ridges. And then the center of the cap can get paler and scruffy. And then the edge of the cap, when it's young, if the color is good, will show that little hint of green. But there's a southern chanterelle that Bart described that has the same color patterns.
And this shows that there was a record in Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's from a Namaflore in south central Wisconsin.
Right, so we're still kind of in the Chicago region, honestly, the south part of the state. In the chat, there's a question from, or not a question, a clarification from Peter, who's here. And hello, Peter. I loved seeing your observation. And you can definitely unmute or do in the chat if you had any questions, Patrick, about.
Well, I was wondering if those were different fruit bodies.
They were all in the same little area. In hardwood, I think there was a couple oaks in that area. The interesting thing was there was a couple with there were more of those doubles, than I expected. Where they're two together.
Yeah, like the Deceptivus up northeast does that. So it's possible that the second and third pictures are Deceptivus, and the first picture is something else, maybe Spectaculus. That's a guess based on the color, because you can see the color is quite different there.
Yeah. These ones, and these ones being quite chunky was what was making me. Right. I mean, I'm trying to get it.
But that center picture, I can't say which one that is.
It was small, just small coming up, and I think that wasn't the same.
I mean, it could be Spectaculus because it's more orange, but I don't know.
They were, they were quite orange and quite hefty on the stem, for sure. And they came up, a couple of days after that rain. And actually, I found another couple in another location. I just couldn't stop long enough to pick them because the mosquitoes just about killed me. But they're very similar in color, and I haven't gone back there. But they're all in the same area. It's kind of a big park.
Yeah. What was the smell, if any?
I couldn't smell. That's what I was thinking. I couldn't smell anything. I couldn't smell any apricot or whatever. I wondered about that, whether my smell is gone or.
Oh, or there was, I think, was it the Chicago ones don't smell?
Yeah.
Okay, so there may be variation in the population, whatever species this is, even on that the production of whatever is making that apricot smell. And I don't know what, I guess we could say mycochemical that is. You know, they say phytochemical.
Yeah.
I might have heard someone say that in the drying process, they smelled that, but I'm not sure. I'm just.
It is difficult. I a lot of times will test my sense of smell before smelling something to see, like, and then just sometimes one person can smell it and one person can't. So,
Yeah.
Which I will use this moment to highlight something on the iNaturalist website that you can do for kind of improving the data. If it's something that there's this whole data quality assessment box. And first of all, you can correct if somebody seems to have messed something up. You could say, oh, this doesn't look like it's wild. It looks like it's been cultivated in a pot or something. You could mark down on that. A lot like Mushroom Observer, you can vote on the quality of images. But this isn't, this part is not a condemnation, right? Right at the bottom of any observation. Sometimes you simply cannot improve the taxonomy without microscopy or something. So I could say he's identified it as a chanterelle. It's as good as it can be right now. And that can make it a research grade chanterelle if somebody else agrees. And I will agree that it is certainly.
Is that on the bottom of the page now, or is there something you have to click to show that?
It's always at the bottom of the page. You really do have to scroll down, and I think you have to be on.
That's cool.
You have to. Sorry, go ahead.
Did they add that recently or not?
It's been on there the whole time I've been on, but that would have been March of 2019. Oh, and it is really nice for quality control and very quickly without having to rely on the comments. Right. But this is with quality control and kind of helping show what is and isn't known right now. It's just not knowable without.
There's so many mushroom pictures. It's like you
can't get to species, but people feel like the needs ID makes it incomplete, and to some degree that's true. But for right now, this is a research grade chanterelle. I can confirm it's a chanterelle. It's not, but we don't know the species. It's probably more than one.
Well, that's useful. Yeah.
Yeah. And a fun thing, obviously, even right from this page, you can kind of get a sense of how many other people are spotting or claiming to spot chanterelles in the area. And you can.
Yeah. So that map. So this record is at the genus level. So that map is showing everything at the genus level or species in chanterelles. So it's showing you the whole genus.
Exactly. And that can be really useful for looking at the data of something that you're not interested in, the specific species. Maybe you can't even get to specific species. This person thinks they've done it with Cantharellus cinnabarinus, which I hadn't heard of.
That's the cinnabar chanterelle.
It looks orange. But all right. So one thing, just quickly going back to Mycoguide, because I did want to highlight for everybody that this is a really cool website. I've been getting into it more, doing research about chanterelles. For sure, you can poke around and find great little guides like this that if you wanted to teach mycology to even any age level, you could print this out and just give a really fun overview. Of course, there's the scientific terms, but it really gets into the specific, the pictures.
Those are PDFs that are in the methods directory.
Yes. So if you're on, I'm probably going to be on a bunch of PDFs here, but if you're on the website,
you go to the top and click on
you're at the source and you go resource, or I think it might have been methods. Yeah. If you go to methods in mycology, and there's just all these PDFs here that you can get going with.
And those are from workshops that I did with the club.
Yeah, and I think it's a great resource.
Documentation are different forms that I've used for describing mushrooms.
Yeah, I didn't even have time to get through to look at all of them today and yesterday, but it's a really great place to start learning about things and definitely explore the website, go around through it. And
on resources, there's links there. There's and on the left, there's a couple other pages linked on that left column. There's my recommended books, and then checklists are checklists for the fungi of the Chicago area. So that would be similar for southern Wisconsin. Up north with the conifers, you get a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, and that can be, this is kind of like the type of, you're almost making what a birder would, right? Like a checklist.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I started out as a birder, and they have these little checklists with box.
You can see it. You can see the birder genealogy here.
I didn't actually realize that.
Oh, it shows up. And yeah, these are really interesting. It's just looking through these and looking up the species. I find it really interesting to get a sense of what's in an area, what's been seen and identified to species, because there's, of course, this is going to be a fraction, but that's partly why we love mycology. You know.
Yeah, it's based on my data I have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have my Wisconsin data and Brits data compiled to do something similar. That's something I want to do, but I haven't had the time.
Yeah, I've been trying to keep a life list, and to some degree, when you for fungi I see, and just this is also Patrick's on iNaturalist, just so everybody knows, and Mushroom Observer. Those are all links in the chat. And
I don't post very many things. I'm thinking it'd be nice for me to post one good picture of each species in Chicago, something like that.
Yeah, I think that'd be great to make almost like a visual checklist and guide for people that they could go through on iNaturalist. And a lot of times you do, if you're interested in what's in your area, you pull up your area, and then it is always so depressing when you pull up an area and there's just no good fungi pictures. So we're changing that one photo at a time. Yeah. I was interested in this because I actually hadn't heard of this species, but I know I've seen it.
Yeah, it's uncommon, and it's on Blue Beech or Carpinus trees. I don't know if you have those very often in Wisconsin.
I'm not particularly familiar. I don't know if anybody else. There are a lot of different little ecosystems in Wisconsin.
It's a smaller and very thin Stereum.
Yeah.
I have a new Stereum page on my website that I did last winter. I don't know if you have.
I also wanted to highlight, just before we're almost to the end of my time, and then it'll be your time, but on the main page, there is these kind of in the media bits. And of course, here's actually our presentation that we're going to see, so you can see that. But I was actually looking, here it is, new and featured content. This is where, if you're really interested in like, what's the latest research? What's the latest update on taxonomic messes getting cleaned up or blown apart?
It's my newest pages. Mm-hmm. And the Stereum page took quite a lot of work, because more complicated than I thought. But what triggered this was I was updating it and doing some search online. I found there's a student in, I think it's Iowa, that is doing DNA sequencing now of Stereum and starting to sort out these things. So I did my best based on that and the literature to figure out what these Stereum actually are in Chicago area, which would be basically, and I also included the ones from Wisconsin that we got. I got one up north, a red staining one. So we were using the Stereum Australia name for a long time, but that's actually a tropical species name, and we don't have that. We have these other three species in the Midwest instead. And I'm not even sure yet how to really tell some of them apart.
And this is the species name you're talking about, just for everyone to notice it. It's the Australia. One is tropical. Yeah, the name just got applied, as is pretty common. Just we have one name for things that look like this, and this looks like this. So it's just
well, what happened in this case and other cases is people describe these things as separate, like 100 years ago or so, and then people 50 or 60 years ago decided they weren't different and lumped them together, and the field guides are lumped on that lumped together name and Stereum Austria, and so that name is used everywhere now, and so it makes a mess of trying to sort out what actually is where, because if you don't know of a name, if you don't know a name exists for the thing you have and it's lumped up to something else, it's difficult to go back and separate that later without a specimen.
Yeah, and then everybody feels like you're making them relearn things, but really it's what the nature always was, and we're just finding better words.
Our knowledge waffles back and forth.
Yes, that's a good description of science, waffling. Yeah, so this is going to be your false turkey tail, and that's where you're, instead of your pores, you're finding this flat surface.
Yeah, and if you find a fresh Stereum, rub the underside and see if it changes to yellow or red or does not change. That's a key character in these ones when they're fresh. It doesn't work. It doesn't work right now when you're finding the ones from last year.
Right.
Peter, this is Bill, just for a quick comment. In northern Wisconsin, my father used to comment there are some significant patches of blue beech, and this is in the Merrill and Tomahawk areas.
Okay. So if you scroll down, you'll see Stereum striatum on that page.
I'll get to it. And then we're going to have to introduce you, Patrick, here, because it's about time. But yes, Stereum striatum is what you're talking about. And
then right above that, that's Stereum sanguinolentum I found last year on a dead pine at the Hiles foray, I think. It stains red and it's on compost.
Yeah. Reminder to everybody, Hiles is coming up and limited spots for Hiles.
Next week.
Yeah, but that's through us. That's through WMS. If you don't have an email from us and you feel like you should have information about Hiles, contact us on the site. Contact our email. Let us know. We'll get it to you. So with that, I'll turn over to Tess. Thank you so much. Also, Patrick, for co-hosting the beginning with me.
Okay.